A few days ago, my movie industry knowledge was yet again expanded with the realization that there's a new film adaptation of the video game property Doom. And the reason behind this realization was not that positive. It's because everyone and their grandmother on Twitter was downright bullying it, usually claiming it as one of the worst quote-unquote movies ever made. And I do mean everyone. Obviously, we had general filmgoers and fans of the franchise gracefully expressing their dissatisfaction as they do.
You never played the game, didn't you? Movie beyond terrible.
I just finished
Please, for the love of God, save your money on this.
But we also had the real developers of Doom basically washing their hands from it like an embarrassed big brother of a leper. And if that wasn't already enough, then we also had the actual marketing team for the movie itself seeming to agree that what they were marketing was not so good, as was evident after a certain very sophisticated piece of criticism by a certain very sophisticated Twitter user.
Now what should we do with the cartridge? How about smash it with the hammer? Nah, that's not good enough. I know. Bombs away.
This is a movie, not a game. Clever video though.
And when you look at the actual full movie, it's not that difficult to see where this criticism and bullying is coming from. The film is nothing like the source material. The CGI is ridiculous, even on 90s standards. The whole thing in general has a very cheap look, and they for example reuse the same sets over and over again, just from different angles. But the thing is, these are so easy and surface level criticisms to make that it's not really worth for me to do a video on. And besides, you have to remember that this is a straight to digital release, meaning that they probably didn't have that much money. And if you get more into filmmaking yourself, you start to value the meaning of that sentence. Sometimes you're not given much and you just have to try to work with what you got. And that clearly was the issue here. So what am I saying? Am I saying this movie at heart actually is not that bad? No, it is. It really is. So much so that all the online bullying and ridicule it's receiving is fully justified. But it's not because of any surface level stuff like money or source material. It's because this movie from the start doesn't know how not to commit the most basic holy trinity of movie making sins, which always has the following results. Firstly, I don't care about anything that's happening. Secondly, I don't understand anything that's happening. Thirdly, I'm mainly just pissed off at what's happening because this movie is treating me like a child. In other words, hold your breath, because we're gonna dive down into the lepery underworld of Doom Annihilation to see what these holy trinity basic movie making sins are exactly and how it manages to commit them. If you don't want your movie, regardless of budget, to become the bullied laughingstock of the internet, here's a few things to avoid. The first movie-making storytelling sin Doom Annihilation commits is the fact that it never makes the audience care about anything that's going on, because it never makes us care about any of the main characters. A sin it commits in the very first scene after the prologue by forgetting the most crucial character building component, the introduction. I touched on this topic in my Alita video, but a character introduction essentially is a visual method for you to inform the audience who the character is. You for example throw a problem or some form of conflict at them and then show how they deal with it, what choice they make, what action they take. Something to visually establish who they are as a person so that the audience can take interest in them as they face more problems and choices throughout the story and develop through them. Well, take a look at how the female lead is introduced in Annihilation. Here are the biggest highlights.
Watching over you, my beautiful girl. Believe in yourself, Joan.
Are we almost there yet?
Yes. We'll arrive at Phobos in approximately 3 hours.
Morning. Is this shit edible?
And there you have it. She has a dream of her sick mom, which tells us that she lost her family. She wakes up and stretches and takes a shower and eats, all of which tells us that she's a tough soldier. As in, we get to know where she comes from and what she is. But we still have no idea who she is, because there are no meaningful actions or choices or anything of the kind to inform us. Is she adventurous and full of life? Is she kind and caring? Does she put others over herself? I don't know, and I don't care. You might argue argue that the female lead begins making some choices and actions in the second act, which is disputable, but it doesn't really matter anyway because at this point it's too late. If you don't introduce your hero as a person and pull the audience in right away, whatever happens later on will be completely without context and thus pointless. Because how could the audience ever understand the price and the impact of the choices and actions our hero has to make down the line when we don't even know who our hero is or what choices and actions they usually make? In other words, what we end up with is a boring, uninteresting blank shell. And while blank shell protagonists might work in games, they do not in film.
You look good, Joan.
Thanks.
You're a lieutenant now. That's impressive.
Thanks.
As for the rest of the team, I think you can already guess. They don't get separate personal introductions. They don't make any choices or actions to show us who they are and make us care. The way we meet them is that they're all just sitting at the breakfast table chatting meaningless bull. And so, since we have no clue who any of these people are, the way the movie tries to even distinguish them from each other is by utilizing cliché tropes and race-based stereotypes. We have the bulky black machine gun soldier who calls the enemies mother effers, who by the way dies right away. We have a super smart Asian soldier who knows ancient languages for some reason, who also dies right away. We have the just and courageous commander. We have the badass female soldier with colorful hair. I mean, goddamn, even the pilot here is a straight ripoff of Danny McBride's pilot in the new Alien movie.
I am your pilot, welcoming you back to consciousness. Oh, and before you ask, I totally went through all your stuff during the 4-month slumber.
So I might as well be honest. I've been arrested 3 times, and I have stolen a vehicle.
And by the way, as a side note, I don't usually bring up stuff like this, but it is pretty weird how all the non-white characters here seem to die right away. To give this movie some credit, there is one character who you can get a grip on and care about, because she gets an actual introduction. When the station is first attacked, the nurse lady is the one who stands up to check if everyone else is okay despite her own wounds. She's the one who goes to a first aid kit to deal with the problem. Choices, actions. Too bad her screen time is limited to a total of a couple minutes because we're too busy following the blank plank of wood. The second basic scene problem you can notice while watching this film is the fact that you have no idea what you're watching, because the film never properly establishes the plot, the goals, the stakes, the urgency, what we're doing, why we're doing it. Don't get me wrong, there is a very simple and straightforward plot in here with a very effective ticking time bomb. It's made super clear and it's actually pretty great.
The reserve power's at just over 2%. That gives us about 90 minutes. Getting the system back online will be meaningless unless we can restore the power. The safeguards put in place to protect against the core meltdown will fail. We'd lose the base. And almost certainly the moon.
In essence, our heroes have to find a way to reach the reactor room and turn the power back on before the base's reserve power runs out and the place blows up along with the entire moon. On paper, it's all fantastic. Clear goal, big stakes, big urgency. But the problem is, we're not reading this movie off of paper. We're watching it on screen with our eyes, visually. First of all, I have no clue what this goal of going to turn the power back on actually means. I mean, I know what it means in theory, but I don't know what it means in practice, because this goal that we're trying to reach has never been visually established. I've never been to the power room. I don't know where it is. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know anything about it. The characters appear to know, but I don't. And so, whenever the characters are on the move, I have zero clue whether or not we're making any progress. Whenever the characters are facing obstacles, I have zero clue whether or not beating those obstacles are somehow connected to our main objective. And therefore, all this movie is just a bunch of people walking through a bunch of recycled rooms without a clear purpose or a sense of progression, which is excruciatingly boring. Because how could the audience ever get into a plot that involves fixing something when they have no idea what it even is that needs fixing? That's like if in Infinity War we have the plot of stopping Thanos from getting the Infinity Stones, but we never actually see the stones or Thanos until we get to the ending fights. So, not that great. Same thing with all the stakes and the urgency. The movie verbally sets up this big ticking time bomb that if the power isn't turned turned back on in 90 minutes, then the entire freaking moon blows up. Oh sweet baby Jesus. The only issue is, where's the proof? Does this honestly look like a place that's running low on power? Does it look like a place that's going to blow up any minute? No, it looks cleaner and better lit than my own freaking apartment stairwell. Where's the increasing tremoring? Where's the damage? Where are the blinking lights and the distant alarms? Where is the visual evidence that this place is going to blow, let alone blow the freaking moon with it? I know you're a futuristic high-tech sci-fi movie, but now you're just pulling stuff out your a-hole and you know it.
We lose the base. And almost certainly the moon.
Who's the moon?
Who the design this place?
And if all that wasn't already enough, the plot of this movie is also the kind where our hero has absolutely no personal investment in it whatsoever. She has no connection to this place. There are no people close to her here that she needs to save. There's nothing that would relate to the backstory with her mom. She and everyone else are here doing what they're doing just because they're soldiers and someone ordered them to do so. And at the midpoint they all even deliberately abandon the goal of turning the power back on and just try to leave. So I guess the moon blowing up isn't that big of a deal after all. Show us the power room at the start. Show us the reactor getting damaged in the incident. Show us the damage gradually spreading throughout the base. Show us what is the problem we are trying to fix and why. Just please show us something, anything other than just your a-hole that you're pulling all this theoretical stuff out of. In addition to just making you not care and leaving you bored in confusion, Doom Annihilation finishes the holy trinity of basic storytelling sins by also pissing you off by repeatedly insulting your intelligence, something which it accomplishes by way of exposition, aka characters stating information out loud in order for the audience to receive it. I would say there's quite a bit of exposition in this movie, but that would be lying, because the truth is this whole movie is just a bunch of on-the-nose exposition.
Phobos is the innermost and larger of the two Martian moons.
It's a language from ancient Mesopotamia that's been effectively extinct since 2000 BC.
Now, the facility is built into the moon.
My supervisor told me that the main lab's only accessible via an elevator and with a colored key card.
Cargo bay, various offices, living quarters.
Why do the other controls work?
Well, they're linked to the same power system as the emergency lights.
The research facility is located a click north of the Stickney crater.
Yes, sir. Is all this information going to be on the test?
Exposition in of itself isn't necessarily bad or evil, but instead more of a necessary evil that all movies to some extent need in order to work. But there's the right way to do it and there are the wrong ways to do it. And since this movie is nothing but exposition, it manages to do it in all the wrong ways you can think of, with very irritating results. First of all, it delivers highly vital information in such a half-assed way that not only feels obvious and forced, but also basically like cheating. There's a scene at the end where the female lead has to fight and kill the nice scientist guy who has been turned into a zombie, and there needs to be an emotional relationship between them in order for this to feel like anything. And how does the movie set up this super important, highly emotional relationship?
What's funny?
Our first date, that restaurant you took me to was on the roof of that hotel. We had to take the stairs all the way because you were afraid of elevators.
You remembered.
I never forgot anything.
You could say this elevator scene subverted my expectations, because up until this point everything I'd seen led me to believe that these two barely even know each other, let alone deeply care about one another. But then again, if the movie says so, it must be true. What do I know? I'm just the idiot audience.
We dated for what, 6 weeks, 10 years ago?
It was more like 4 months.
Oh. I'm sorry, Bennett.
Secondly, this movie also delivers information in such a direct, open way that actually degrades the believability and the emotion of the information it's delivering. For example, when the female lead talks about her mother.
What happened?
My mom died when I was a little girl. Cancer.
The movie initially made a big deal out of the female lead still having nightmares about her mom's death, indicating that she still hasn't gotten over it. But if that's the case, why in the name of the holy frick would she just openly talk about it? Not only does it make the loss of her mother seem like not that big of a deal, it's also f***ing dumb. People don't just casually talk about their most inner demons that they haven't yet gotten over. And if she has gotten over it already, if it no longer is a flaw that affects her, why is it in the movie to begin with? This also leads us to the third lesson. Stop verbally repeating information that the audience has already visually received. We already saw the mother dying on a hospital bed at the start. We got it, we understood. There's no reason to bring the information up again. Unless you're taking old information and developing it into something new and having characters change by it in the process, don't repeat it. Just don't do it. It's a waste of the audience's time and it's really annoying. We're not idiots.
What's the problem? Well, we're knocking on the front door, but nobody's home.
I'm afraid I am unable to establish communication with Phobos Tower.
We got a problem? Come with me. You too, Dr. Stone.
What's going on?
Phobos is not responding.
The true right way to deliver exposition is to take the information you're feeding to the audience and dress it up to look like something entirely else, in a way that the audience doesn't know they're being fed information. If you want to know how it's done, go check out my Winter Soldier video. But if you'd rather just know what not to do, I'll leave you with this. When you're making a movie, just imagine that you're making entertainment. Just imagine that your audience for that entertainment consists of at least partly developed human beings capable of their own thoughts. Because if you don't, if you're not making that, then you're making the opposite.
That's the BFG 9000. I've only ever read about it, never actually seen one.
We've got 4 things on the list.
Tomatoes, spaghetti, onions, and fruit.
Of course, no Marine calls it that.
What do they call it?
The big f***ing gun.
Spaghetti.
That's right, George, but it's called spaghetti.
Plasma grenade.
Spaghetti! Look, Mummy, here's the spaghetti!
Fires a green burst of plasma instead of bullets.
This is the checkout, where all the food is paid for.